All right, our last step here for importing data is to create the assets table. And we once again are going to be running a SQL script to do that. We're pulling data from this imported customer table called data import. And I should probably begin a little bit with an explanation of what are the fields that are actually in an asset. What are the possible data columns you can have? Well, these are the general ones here. You have a name, and that's has to be unique. It's the asset ID for that item. But you can have a description and asset type. The things that we typically will use are the name, the description. If there is an RFID tag with it, it's a passive tag, and that EPC value would then be thrown into that column. If there's a referencing V tag that you're attaching to it, you can put that as well. The locations here are actually going to come from the locations table, right? And department code, gateway would again refer to a fixed reader. Remember in the previous video we did the creation of the locations table, and all of those things now populate here. I think there were 23,000 of them, right? So you have a lot of different fields that you can create here. There are some fields that have fixed names like the ones that you're seeing. And then there are others that are more generic. You'll have a text 1 through text 20. There's date fields and list fields. And that provides a little bit more flexibility for how you want to present this data in AssetWorks, and we generally recommend it. If you use the text 1 through text 20 fields, for example, you can use the nomenclature of the customer rather than the nomenclature for these fields that AssetWorks is throwing at you. So name and description are really, name, description, and location ID are the only things off of this page that we typically will use. And then the rest of them will be additional fields, these generic fields of text 1 through 20. All right, so given that, if you look back at this SQL script, again, we're going to run this to delete other assets, reset the new index to 1 as we create new assets. And then we're going to insert into the asset table this list of columns, right? All of those column names exist in the AssetWorks asset table. Now, this next section is really about just some simple computations. This customer has a barcode on their assets that has some prefix values that are static. One being the location site. You could actually almost say not the company ID, but the company name, the company site name. And then they have a space and an EE prefix as well. And then the value of that asset ID. And that's all kind of put in this barcode that goes on the part. And that's why we do this section here, where I'm selecting this and also I'm creating an RFID tag value that looks at the length of that combination of site, EE, and whatever, and then padding it for a legal EPC RFID string, right? So that's what that section is. This is just the rest of the column names in the in the customer supplied data field or data table. So this data import will have these names matched with these names up here, which are part of the AssetWorks asset table column names, right? And then in the end, we do an update to make sure that the location ID for each asset is pulled from the location table. We're matching the location name and company ID combination with what's in the location table, pulling out the ID and putting it in this column called location ID in the asset table. So we'll run this. Again, if you went back here and we look at assets, you recognize there are no assets, nothing there, right? And I'll run this script now. And that ran really fast, kind of amazingly fast. Let's see what that did for us. If I come back here and I refresh, Oh, I still have nothing. So there appears to be an error. I'm going to investigate that. Just simply be running that script. I'm not sure if my cursor was in the wrong place or whatever, but I didn't really make any changes. I think I may have had a syntax change in terms of a space here. But I believe this will run within about a minute, and we should be left with, 580,000 some assets in this table. All right, we're finally done. Yep, 586,959 assets. And a little slower laptop here. This took maybe a little over, I don't know, 2-3 minutes, something like that, to crunch through all that. And just to make sure that we actually see that, now if I go back to my web service and I look, I have an incredibly large number now of assets. And the name column here, again, remember the name column is going to match the barcode that is attached to that assets label. So we can scan the barcode and it'll match the name column in the database. In a similar way, the locations table will have a name column, and that will also match the barcode value that's in each door jamb. All right. So we are now ready to customize how we want to display this stuff, and we'll go through that in the next video.